I clutch the gift bags tighter as I walk up the cracked concrete path to my parents' house. The warm spring evening carries the familiar smell of my father's cigarettes and my mother's potted geraniums. My stomach tightens with each step. After 3 months without a visit, I've carefully selected these gifts to bridge the growing gap between us. Look who finally remembered where she came from. My father calls from his worn recliner as I step through the door. His eyes travel from my pressed slacks to my hotel name badge, which I forgot to remove. The fancy hotel manager graces us with her presence. Hi, Dad. I force a smile as my brother Jack emerges from the kitchen, beer in hand. At 32, he still lives at home, following Dad's footsteps at the steel mill. Nice outfit. Jack snickers. That polyester blend must really impress the rich folks at your hotel. My fingers tighten around the handles of the shopping bags, the paper crinkling slightly. I take a slow, steadying breath and remind myself why I'm here. Family is family, even when they cut with their words. I brought some things I thought you might like. I set the bags on the coffee table as Mom enters, wiping her hands on a dishcloth. Her eyes meet mine briefly before darting away. Dad, this is a new insulated work coat for your night shifts. The reviews said it keeps you warm, even in freezing temperatures. Friends? I hand him the package, watching him unwrap it with calloused fingers. For a moment, I see appreciation flicker in his eyes, before it hardens into something else. Mom, I got you that ceramic cookware set you mentioned last Thanksgiving. I pass her a heavier bag, which she accepts with a hesitant smile. For Jack, I chose a watch similar to the one he admired on my wrist months ago. As he opens the box, his eyebrows rise slightly. My father clears his throat. Hotel money makes you feel rich enough to buy all this? His voice carries that familiar edge that turns my stomach sour. Is that why you never call anymore? Too busy counting your dollars? Heat floods my face. My heart pounds against my ribs as if trying to escape. Even after all these years, his words still hit their mark. Actually, I say, trying to salvage the evening, I have some good news. I was promoted to senior manager last week. I smooth my slacks, a nervous habit from childhood. It's a significant step up. The silence that follows reminds me of when I first mentioned college. Dad had thrown his dinner plate into the sink, shattering it. Real workers use their hands, not fancy words, he'd declared. In contrast, Aunt Annie had smiled broadly when I showed her my acceptance letter, pressing a check into my palm. Education is never wasted, she'd whispered, her eyes bright with pride. I study my father's face now, noting how his jaw tightens at my news. Why does every achievement feel like a betrayal in this house? The pattern is so familiar it almost feels choreographed. My success triggers their hostility. Yet some stubborn part of me still craves their approval. I thought maybe seeing what the promotion entails might help you understand why it matters to me, I say, reaching for my laptop bag. The computer inside is brand new, purchased with my first paycheck advance. 6 easy payments still to go. I put together the renovation proposal that convinced corporate to invest in our property. I open the sleek silver laptop on the coffee table, careful to avoid the water rings on the wood. I wanted to share this with you because it matters to me, I say, keying in my password. This presentation is what I'll be showing potential investors tomorrow. Dad snorts. That fancy computer won't help when that hotel fails. Tourist towns always dry up eventually. My fingers pause on the keyboard. This isn't just about showing off an accomplishment. This presentation represents weeks of late nights and research. My first major project as senior manager depends on this laptop. Mom stands silently by the doorway, her new cookware clutched to her chest, eyes fixed on the floor. She hasn't met my gaze once since I arrived. Jack leans forward, setting his unwrapped watch on the table. Still trying to prove you're better than us? Pathetic. The word hangs in the air between us, 3 against 1 in their territory, with my professional future balanced on my lap. I'm having lunch with Aunt Annie tomorrow to celebrate. I say, my voice steadier than I feel. She's excited about the promotion. Dad's face darkens at the mention of his sister's name. My sister always encouraged your foolishness, filled your head with ideas about being something you're not. Aunt Annie believed in me when no one else did, I reply, carefully closing my laptop and slipping it back into its protective case. A small act of self-preservation. She loaned me money for my first semester when you refused. And look where that got you, Dad mutters, working for people who'd fire you tomorrow if it saved them $1. I stand, smoothing my slacks again. I should go. I have a presentation to prepare. As I gather my things, I catch Mom's eye for a fleeting moment. Something like regret passes over her face before she looks away again. Jack examines his new watch with feigned indifference, while Dad stares at the TV as if I've already left. Walking back to my car, a thought forms with surprising clarity. Maybe they'll never see my value, but others do. The hotel director who championed my promotion. My team who stays late to help with projects. Aunt Annie who never doubted me. For the first time, I wonder if that might be enough. I clutch my laptop to my chest, rising from the sagging couch cushions. The presentation I've spent weeks perfecting is safely tucked inside this silver case, my future balanced in my hands. I should get going, I say, forcing lightness into my voice. Big day tomorrow. Dad's eyes track me as I move toward the door, his jaw working beneath stubbled skin. Something in his expression shifts, a hardening I've seen before, but never fully registered. He sets his beer on the coffee table with deliberate care. Wait. His voice stops me cold. You think you can just breeze in here after 3 months, drop off some guilt presents, and take off? My fingers tighten around the laptop. I'm not trying to. You've always thought you were better than us. Dad rises from his recliner, his frame blocking the path to the door. With your fancy hotel job and your pressed clothes. Jack chuckles from the corner. Those rich folks have her thinking she belongs with them. I glance at Mom, hoping for an ally, but she studies the pattern on her new cookware box, fingers tracing the edges. The air in the living room thickens, pressing against my lungs. Dad, please. I need to prepare for tomorrow. People are counting on me. His laugh comes harsh and sudden. People are counting on me too. At the mill, doing real work. Before I can respond, he lunges forward. His calloused hands wrap around my laptop, wrenching it from my grasp with surprising strength. Dad, what are you doing? His face twists with an anger that seems to have been waiting years for this moment. You need to know your place. Real work is at the mill. The world slows as he raises the laptop above his head. My body freezes, unable to process what I'm seeing. With a grunt, he smashes it to the floor. The crack echoes through the room, metal frame bending, screen splintering into a web of fractures. The hinge breaks free, plastic shards skittering across the worn carpet. I drop to my knees beside the ruined computer. My presentation, my promotion, my future. Now you'll learn what real work feels like, Jack says, not bothering to hide his satisfaction. A memory surfaces, sharp and suddenly clear. Dad, tearing my college application in half when I was 17. My textbooks mysteriously soaked in the bathtub the night before my Saturday. My acceptance letter accidentally thrown into the fireplace. This wasn't the first time. This was simply the first time I couldn't deny the pattern. How could you? My voice comes out steady, surprising me. This has my entire presentation on it. The hotel is counting on me to deliver this tomorrow. Dad towers over me unmoved. Hotels come and go. Family is forever. I stare at my shattered laptop, something shifting inside me. Every achievement in my life had been met with accidents and sabotage. Every step forward countered by their attempts to pull me back. With trembling hands, I pull out my phone and take several photos of the destroyed laptop. Dad frowns, confusion crossing his face as I document the damage from multiple angles. What are you doing? I don't answer. Instead, I reach into my purse and remove the receipt for the laptop's 6 payments still pending. I photograph that too, then carefully return it to my wallet. Casey. Dad's voice softens, taking on the reasonable tone he uses when talking to neighbors. I'm trying to save you from disappointment. That hotel world isn't for people like us. What do you mean, people like us? I ask, gathering the largest pieces of broken plastic and metal. Jack steps forward, beer still in hand. Dad says they're bringing in machines at the mill. We could lose everything. The confession hangs in the air between us. Fear not, malice flashes across my father's face. If you fail too, at least we all stay together, Dad says, his voice rough with emotion I rarely hear. Family sticks together. I look at him, really look at him for perhaps the first time. The lines etched deeper around his eyes, the slight tremble in hands that have worked steel for 30 years, the terror of obsolescence. They're not cartoon villains. They're scared people making terrible choices. Your father just wants what's best for all of us. Mom finally speaks, her voice small but certain. her loyalty never wavering, even now. I finish collecting the pieces of my computer, placing them carefully into my laptop bag. Each broken fragment represents years of their silent campaign against my independence. I always hoped we could be a real family, I say, standing with as much dignity as I can muster. But I guess I was wrong. Dad's expression falters. Casey, don't be dramatic. It's just a computer. I turn toward the door, laptop bag clutched against my chest. It's not about the computer. It's about respect. Something I've never gotten in this house. Instead of driving to my apartment, I find myself navigating the familiar streets to Aunt Annie's neighborhood. Her porch light glows warm against the evening darkness as I park in her driveway. Before I can knock, the door swings open. Annie takes one look at my face and the bag in my arms. "Oh, honey, what happened?" she asks, pulling me into an embrace that smells of cinnamon and stability. Inside her kitchen, I spread the broken pieces across her table. Annie listens without interruption as I explain what happened. When I finish, she disappears into her spare room and returns with an old laptop. "It's not fancy, but it works," she says, placing it beside the ruins of mine. "They can break things, but they can't break you." I run my finger along a crack in the screen of my destroyed computer. This isn't about a computer. This is about respect. Annie nods, her eyes fierce with understanding. "Then we better make sure you knock that presentation out of the park tomorrow." For the first time since walking into my parents' house, I feel my shoulders relax. I won't let them take this opportunity from me. "No," Annie agrees, squeezing my hand. "We won't." I pace the floral carpet in Aunt Annie's living room, my phone clutched against my ear. The clock on her mantel shows 2:13 a.m., but sleep is the furthest thing from my mind. "Yes, I understand you're closed." I tell the hotel's IT support line, keeping my voice steady despite the panic threatening to bubble up. I just need to confirm whether my presentation autosaved before my laptop was damaged. Annie appears in the doorway wearing a faded bathrobe, her silver-streaked hair loose around her shoulders. She carries 2 steaming mugs of tea, concern etching deeper lines around her eyes. "Good news," I tell her, after hanging up. "Everything's backed up to the company drive. I can access it from any computer." Annie sets the tea down with a soft clink. "Smart girl. Always prepared." "I learned my lesson after what happened to my college application," I say, remembering how my acceptance letter mysteriously disappeared from the mail pile years ago. I always back up important work now. Annie sinks into her armchair, the springs creaking softly beneath her. "Your father did similar things to me when we were young, you know. Broke my camera the week before my photography scholarship interview." My stomach tightens. "You never told me that." "Some family stories are harder to share than others." She sips her tea. "Have you noticed that these accidents always happen right before your big opportunities?" The realization lands like a stone. Every major milestone, college acceptance, first apartment lease signing, promotion interviews, all preceded by mysterious mishaps or emergencies requiring my immediate attention and resources. How did I not see it before? My voice sounds hollow even to my own ears. Annie opens a drawer in the side table and removes a small notebook. "Your mother gave me this last Christmas. She said she didn't know what to do with it." I flip through pages of my mother's neat handwriting dates, job titles, salary figures, a complete record of my career milestones, carefully maintained in secret. "She's been keeping track," I whisper. "I think part of her is proud," Annie says. "She just can't show it." The weight of this revelation settles over me, but alongside it comes a strange sense of clarity. They can break my possessions, but they can't erase my achievements or my knowledge. "Let's see what we can salvage," Annie says, disappearing into her spare room. She returns with an ancient laptop, bulky and worn but functioning. They can break things, but they can't break your mind. I power up the computer, its fan whirring loudly in the quiet house. The screen glows blue, illuminating Annie's determined face. "I'm not just going to deliver this presentation," I say, fingers already flying across the unfamiliar keyboard. "I'm going to make it memorable." Annie squeezes my shoulder. "That's my girl." We work through the night, recovering files and rebuilding slides. By morning, my eyes burn from exhaustion, but the presentation is better than the original, leaner, more focused, with a narrative that turns obstacles into opportunities. Just before 7 a.m., I save the final version and close my eyes for 20 precious minutes of rest. The conference room feels cavernous as I step inside, clutching Annie's ancient laptop. 6 board members in tailored suits glance up from their phones and tablets, eyebrows rising at the outdated machine in my hands. Casey? The hotel director begins. Is everything all right with your equipment? Instead of apologizing or making excuses, I set the laptop down firmly on the table and meet his gaze. Sometimes obstacles appear right before opportunities, I say, my voice clear and confident. How we handle them defines us. I connect the laptop to the projector with cables Annie found in her attic. The first slide appears, crisp and professional despite its humble origin. Our hotel stands at a similar crossroads, I continue, moving smoothly into my presentation. We can view budget constraints as limitations, or as invitations to innovation. The room shifts. I feel it attention, sharpening, skepticism giving way to curiosity. For the next 20 minutes, I guide them through renovation proposals that emphasize character over cost, uniqueness over uniformity. The old laptop hums steadily, a reminder of resilience. When I finish, the director closes his portfolio with a decisive snap. I've been on the fence about increasing departmental budgets. He says, not anymore. Casey, your team gets the first allocation. My phone buzzes repeatedly in my pocket, texts from my parents asking for their monthly bill money, now 3 days late. I silence it without looking and accept the congratulations coming from around the table. As the board members file out, Regina from accounting pauses beside me. I don't know how you stayed so calm with that old laptop. I would have been a nervous wreck. I smile, a genuine one that reaches my eyes. It's just a tool. The ideas are what matter. In the lobby, I find hotel staff gathered in small clusters, word of my presentation success already spreading. The front desk manager offers a thumbs up. The maintenance supervisor, who rarely speaks to anyone, nods respectfully as I pass. The director catches up to me near the elevators. That was impressive work, Casey, especially given the circumstances. He hesitates. One of the housekeepers mentioned seeing your family in the parking lot yesterday. Is everything okay? It's complicated, I admit. He studies me for a moment. We value your contributions here. If you need an advance on your bonus for a new computer, just say the word. We invest in people who invest in themselves. Before I can respond, I spot Aunt Annie waiting by the front entrance, clutching a small bouquet of yellow daisies. I knew you'd knock their socks off, she says, embracing me tightly. Looking over her shoulder, I see my colleagues watching with approval. These people, my professional family, value what I bring to the table. They see me. You should stay with me until things cool down, Annie says as we walk to her car. My house has always been your house. Sunlight warms my face as we cross the parking lot. For the first time in days, I feel light, unburdened. The question that's been haunting me since the night my laptop shattered feels less urgent now. Do I cut ties completely, or give them one more chance to understand what they've done? I don't need to decide today. With Annie beside me and a workplace that appreciates my value, I have time to consider my next steps carefully. The most important thing I've learned is that I'm not alone in this battle. As we pull away from the hotel, I turn to Annie. Thank you for believing in me. She smiles, eyes on the road ahead. Always have, always will. 3 days after my presentation success, I sit at Aunt Annie's dining room table, surrounded by papers, receipts, and my borrowed laptop. The glow of victory has faded, replaced by something colder and more clinical. I've traded emotional reactions for methodical planning. I can't make decisions based on hurt feelings. I tell Annie as she sets a mug of coffee beside my growing stack of documents. This has to be about facts. The table has become my command center. Spreadsheets track every bill I've paid for my parents over the years. Electricity, water, internet. Each payment meticulously categorized and dated. My fingers tap thoughtfully against the wooden surface as I review the numbers. Which of these ties are actually worth preserving? I murmur, creating another column in my spreadsheet. Some family bonds deserve protection. Others require severing. The distinction requires clear thinking, not sentimentality. Annie leans over my shoulder, her reading glasses perched on her nose. Your father did the same thing to your mother when she wanted nursing school, she says quietly. Tore up her application the night before it was due. I add this information to my notes, feeling a familiar twist in my stomach. This isn't about punishment, I tell her, straightening my shoulders. It's about protection. I pull up listings for apartments near the hotel. The lease application for a secure building sits half completed on my screen. I need my own sanctuary, I explain when Annie raises an eyebrow. Somewhere they don't have access to. This is a business restructuring, not a family crisis. Every connection requires evaluation. Financial entanglements, emergency contacts, automatic payments. My hotel training serves me well. Crisis management requires systematic thinking. Annie watches as I document years of financial support. You've been paying their bills since your first management position? She observes, pointing to the spreadsheet. 3 years of utilities. Plus groceries and Jack's car insurance, I add, scrolling through bank statements. The evidence builds, row after organized row. I need to understand exactly what I've been contributing to make informed decisions about what stops. I create a separate folder for communications with HR. My payroll deposits need redirection. Emergency contacts require updating, not confrontation, preparation. When Annie mentions my father's pattern of sabotage extending back decades, I note that too. Historical context matters when establishing boundaries. What about your credit reports? Annie asks, bringing more coffee. Already contacted monitoring services. I reply, showing her the confirmation email. And I've started researching apartment security systems. My focus narrows to this single goal: comprehensive independence, not revenge protection. The spreadsheet calculating my total financial contributions to my parents' household grows more detailed. 3 years of support quantified in dollars and cents. Annie squeezes my shoulder. You've always been the responsible one. Time they learn what that means. The phone rings, interrupting our strategy session. Annie answers, her expression tightening as she listens. You'd better come see this, she says, handing me the receiver. 10 minutes later, I stand at my office window overlooking the hotel lobby. My parents are arguing with the receptionist, voices rising. Dad pounds his fist on the counter while Mom clutches her purse, scanning the area for me. They're looking for you, my director says, appearing beside me. Something about missing bill payments? My stomach clenches. This is a new level of threat they've brought their manipulation to my workplace. Their willingness to jeopardize my professional reputation shows they remain formidable opponents. Security approaches them with calm professionalism. I watch as my father's face reddens, his finger jabbing toward the elevators that lead to the management offices. Mom's tears seem calculated from this distance, perfectly timed to draw sympathy from the growing audience of guests. Should we call police? The director asks, concern evident in her voice. No, I respond, straightening my blazer. Security can handle it. I've dealt with difficult guests before. But these aren't guests. These are the people who raised me, now being escorted from the building that represents everything I've built for myself. I watch until they disappear through the glass doors, my father's angry gestures visible until he reaches their car. The tension in my shoulders remains, but something else grows stronger. They can't take this from me either, I say, turning back to my desk where another apartment listing awaits my review. The strategy continues. The preparation deepens, and my resolve hardens with every calculated step. The apartment key feels substantial in my palm as I unlock the door to my new place. 3 weeks after the laptop incident, and I've secured a second-floor unit with a security desk downstairs. The building requires key fob access after hours, a feature I specifically sought out. That's the last box, Annie says, setting down a container labeled kitchen on the countertop. Her silver-streaked hair catches the late afternoon sunlight streaming through windows I've already covered with privacy film. You travel light for someone who's been in one place so long. I only brought what matters, I reply, surveying the sparse living room. A second-hand couch, a coffee table, and my new laptop on a small desk comprise the entirety of my furniture. What's missing speaks volumes. No family photos, no inherited keepsakes, no Christmas ornaments handmade in elementary school. I open my notebook where I've methodically tracked every step of my independence strategy. Each completed task receives a firm check mark. Bank accounts transferred, automatic payments to my parents' household canceled, mail forwarded, phone number changed, social media privacy settings strengthened. The list stretches across 3 pages. Annie watches me add another check. You're treating this like one of your hotel renovation projects. It's essentially the same thing. Assess the damage, create a realistic plan, and rebuild stronger. I close the notebook. This isn't about burning bridges. It's about building boundaries they can't cross without my permission. Later that evening, I sit cross-legged on the floor unpacking books when my new phone buzzes with a notification. My stomach tightens, old habit, but it's just an email confirmation of my credit monitoring service activation. The laptop incident taught me one critical lesson: protect everything. After shelving the last book, I open my laptop to review tomorrow's schedule. The screen reflects my face, composed and focused. 3 months ago, I would have been watching my phone for texts from home, wondering if I should call to check on Mom. Now, that compulsion has faded like an old bruise. Annie appears in the doorway with 2 mugs of tea. Have you thought about what you'll say when they finally realize you've stopped paying their bills? The question settles between us. I've practiced this conversation a dozen times with Annie, rehearsing calm responses to the inevitable accusations. I'll tell them the truth. That I can't financially support people who deliberately sabotage my career, I say, accepting the steaming mug. Then I'll end the conversation if they can't respect that. You make it sound so simple. Annie sits beside me on the floor, her knees crackling softly. Not simple. Necessary. I blow across the surface of my tea. We both know this was never just about a laptop. The next morning, I step out of the shower to find my phone vibrating against the bathroom counter. My mother's name appears on the screen, the first contact in 3 weeks. I answer on the 4th ring. Casey? Monica's voice wavers. The power company called. They said you canceled the automatic payments. Our electricity gets shut off tomorrow if we don't pay. Her words tumble out between sniffles. What's happening? Why are you doing this to us? My rehearsed response evaporates as something in her tone catches me off guard. Not anger, but genuine confusion, as if my actions were completely unprovoked. Mom, after what happened with my laptop and presentation, your father's been so upset. She interrupts. He told everyone you've abandoned us. Your cousin Vicky called to ask what she could do to help. The whole family thinks you've turned your back on us. The revelation hits like cold water. They're rewriting history, casting me as the villain in a story where I was the one betrayed. My father isn't just trying to control me, he's working to control how our entire extended family sees me. I grip the edge of the sink, steadying myself. That's not what happened, Mom. He says you care more about your fancy job than your struggling family, she continues. That we sacrificed everything for your education, and now you won't help when the mill's closing. The strategy comes into focus with brutal clarity. My independence plan addressed financial and physical boundaries, but I never considered they'd attack my reputation within the family. This isn't just about escaping their control, it's about preserving the truth. After ending the call, I open my laptop and begin typing an email addressed to my extended family. The subject line reads, "What actually happened?" Aunt Annie finds me still writing an hour later, documenting years of sabotage with dates, events, and consequences. I thought I just needed to protect myself, I tell her, eyes fixed on the screen. But they're turning everyone against me. I need to protect the truth too. Annie reads over my shoulder, her hand resting lightly on my back. You've done everything you can to be fair. Sometimes the hardest part isn't standing up for yourself, it's standing up to the stories others tell about you. I save the draft, knowing tomorrow, I'll proofread it one final time before sending. The apartment feels quieter than ever as night falls, but my resolve has never been stronger. It's time. I tell Annie as she prepares to leave. I've changed my accounts, secured my home, documented everything. I'm ready to face them on my terms, not theirs. Annie hugs me tightly. Then that's what you'll do. As I close the door behind her, I realize I've built more than just a physical fortress. I've constructed an emotional one too, not to hide within, but to stand upon as I fight for my truth. 3 days later at work, I spot them the moment the lobby doors slide open. My father's weathered hands clutch his best hat, the one reserved for funerals and loan applications. My mother stands beside him in her church dress, the pale blue one with white collar that makes her look smaller than her 5'4" frame. Jack hovers behind them, uncomfortable in a button-down shirt I've never seen before. My stomach drops. 3 days of strategic preparation evaporate in an instant. There she is, my father announces, voice booming across the marble floor. Several guests turn. My colleague Marcus raises an eyebrow from behind the reservation desk. Our hotel manager, daughter. The words sound wrong coming from him, proud instead of mocking. I freeze between the potted palms that flank our reception area, momentarily trapped between my professional world and the family invasion force. Casey, honey, my mother says, stepping forward with arms outstretched. We've been trying to reach you. I manage to keep my face neutral, despite the alarm bells screaming in my head. This isn't a reconciliation attempt. This is an ambush. I'm in the middle of my shift, I say, voice steady. Did you need something urgent? My father sweeps his arm around my mother's shoulders, presenting a united front. Is that any way to greet your folks? We just wanted to invite you to Thanksgiving dinner. The whole family's coming, Uncle Jim, Aunt Denise, even your cousins from Buffalo. The trap becomes clear. If I refuse in front of my colleagues, I'll appear cold and heartless. If I accept, I've surrendered the boundaries it took days to establish. Mr. Miller? My heart nearly stops as Daniel Peterson, the hotel director, approaches with hand extended. I recognize you from the photos in Casey's office. Wonderful to finally meet you. My father transforms, shoulders squaring as he takes Daniel's hand. The pleasure's all mine. Just wanted to see where my daughter works her magic. I watch in horror as my carefully separated worlds collide. Daniel beams, completely unaware of the psychological warfare unfolding in his lobby. Casey's been instrumental in our recent renovation project, Daniel says. The board was extremely impressed with her presentation. That's our girl, my mother chimes in, tears gathering at the corners of her eyes. Always the smart one in the family. Jack steps forward, completing their formation. We're really proud of her, he adds, with enough sincerity to convince anyone who doesn't know better. Daniel turns to me, genuine warmth in his expression. You never mentioned your family was stopping by today. It was meant to be a surprise, my father says before I can respond. His eyes meet mine, challenging. The steel mill's closing. We need you now more than ever. My mother dabs at her eyes with a tissue. The medical bills have been piling up, and with the utilities. Her voice breaks perfectly. Daniel shifts uncomfortably. Marcus and Eliza at the front desk exchange glances. Two guests linger near the brochure stand, openly eavesdropping. My father lowers his voice for maximum dramatic effect. We thought Thanksgiving would be a good chance to talk about everything. Everyone's asking why you haven't returned our calls. The weight of public perception settles on my shoulders. I can feel judgment forming in the small crowd of onlookers. The devoted daughter abandoning her struggling family. I take a steadying breath, mind racing through options. This is exactly the scenario Annie and I had prepared for, but I hadn't expected it so soon. Every instinct screams to retreat, but that would only surrender my professional territory. Why don't we continue this conversation somewhere more private? I gesture toward the small conference room off the main lobby. My office is being painted today. Relief flickers across Daniel's face as he nods encouragement. My father hesitates, clearly preferring the public stage, but my mother touches his arm. That sounds lovely, dear. As we cross the lobby, I catch Jack whispering to my father. Their strategic coordination makes my skin crawl. This isn't a spontaneous visit, it's a calculated operation designed to undo everything I've built. Casey, a familiar voice calls from the entrance. Aunt Annie strides through the sliding doors, waving a paper bag. You forgot your lunch again. I swear you'd forget your head if it wasn't attached. Our prearranged signal, Annie's forgotten lunch appearance, means she spotted my family's car in the parking lot. The cavalry has arrived. My father's jaw tightens at the sight of his sister. Annie locks eyes with me, her brief nod confirming she understands the situation. Annie, my mother says stiffly. What a surprise. Monica? Annie's smile remains pleasant as she hands me the bag. Charles, Jack, the whole Miller clan out on the town. Daniel watches this exchange with growing awareness. His eyes track between my father's rigid posture and Annie's protective stance beside me. Mr. Peterson, I say quietly, pulling my phone from my pocket. Could I show you something quickly before we go into the conference room? While my family exchanges tense pleasantries with Annie, I pull up the photos of my shattered laptop. This is what I'm dealing with. I whisper, swiping through the images. This is why I needed to borrow equipment for the presentation. Daniel's expression shifts from confusion to understanding to controlled anger. He studies the photos, then looks at my father with new eyes. I see, he says simply, but his tone has changed entirely. We reach the conference room door. Inside waits the moment I've been preparing for since the night my laptop shattered on my parents' living room floor. After you. I hold the door, as my family files in. Annie takes position near the entrance, a silent guardian. Daniel follows, now an informed witness rather than an unwitting pawn in my family's game. I straighten my shoulders and take a deep breath before following them in. Everything in my life has led to this confrontation. The strategic preparations of the past days, the boundaries I've established, the support network I've cultivated, all of it converges in this moment. My heart pounds against my ribs as I step through the doorway. Jack smirks from his seat at the conference table. My mother arranges her features into a mask of maternal concern. My father stands at the head of the table, already claiming territory. Annie catches my eye as I close the door behind me. Casey has something important to say, she announces, her voice calm but firm. The door clicks shut. There's no going back now. I stand in the hotel conference room, my back straight as a steel beam, watching my father try to charm my director. The conference room, normally a place of professional triumph for me, feels electrified with tension. Charles Miller has always known how to present himself to strangers. Warm smile, firm handshake, concerned eyes. The perfect facade. We're just worried about Casey, my father says, his voice carrying that well-practiced note of paternal concern. The mill's closing after 40 years, 200 families without income. Times like these, family needs to stick together. Director Phillips nods sympathetically, though I catch his eyes flicking toward me, gauging my reaction. Jack stands by the window, arms crossed over his chest, while Mom clutches her purse on her lap, eyes downcast but occasionally darting around the room. They've positioned themselves strategically, my father as the reasonable patriarch, my mother as the worried matriarch, Jack as the dutiful son. Aunt Annie slips through the door, right on schedule with my forgotten lunch, our prearranged signal. She takes a seat beside me, her hand briefly touching mine under the table. The simple gesture steadies me. I understand family concerns, Director Phillips says, but I'm confused why this required interrupting Casey during work hours. My father leans forward, elbows on the table. Our daughter has stopped answering our calls, canceled our utilities without warning. We're worried she's under too much stress with this new promotion. My pulse quickens, but I don't flinch. Week ago, that accusation would have sent me spiraling into apologetic explanations. Not today. Perhaps we should hear from Casey, Phillips suggests, turning to me. I open the folder I've prepared for this exact moment. 3 months of methodical documentation spread before me. My throat tightens, but I push through. Director Phillips, I'd like to explain why I've needed to establish certain boundaries with my family. My voice emerges stronger than expected. These are photos of my laptop the night before our investment presentation. I slide the first set of photos across the table, the smashed screen, the bent frame, the broken hinge. My father destroyed this laptop when I tried to share news of my promotion. The words hang in the air between us. It wasn't the first time. When I received my college acceptance letter, my textbooks disappeared. When I earned my first management position, my car mysteriously developed engine problems the morning of my first day. My father's face reddens. I'm not finished, I say, my voice level but firm, a tone I've practiced with Annie for weeks. For the past 8 years, I've paid the utilities at my parents' house while trying to build my own career. I've provided financial support while receiving. I tap the photos, this kind of support in return. Jack shifts uncomfortably by the window. Mom stares at her hands. Charles, Annie speaks up, her voice soft but steady. You did the same thing to me when I got that photography scholarship. You broke my camera the night before my portfolio was due. You did it to Monica when she wanted nursing school. You're doing it to Casey now. My father's jaw tightens. Annie, this is family business. Yes, it is. I interrupt, sliding the next document forward. This is a record of every payment I've made toward my parents' household expenses while putting myself through college and building my career. Director Phillips studies the spreadsheet, his eyebrows rising slightly. This is substantial support, Casey. The final document, I continue, extracting a manila folder, contains copies of emails from my mother asking for bill money. Sent the same day my laptop was destroyed. I turned to face my parents directly. You can't claim I abandoned you when I've been financially supporting you for years, even after you tried to sabotage my career. The room falls silent. My father's confident posture has vanished, replaced by a rigid stillness. Jack stares out the window, avoiding eye contact with everyone. Only my mother meets my gaze, tears welling in her eyes. Not the calculated ones she arrived with, but something raw and unplanned. Director Phillips clears his throat. Mr. Miller, are you aware that destroying someone else's property is a crime? We could press charges for the laptop incident alone. My father's face drains of color. That's not necessary. Casey misunderstood. I understand perfectly, I cut in. You've spent years making sure I failed so you wouldn't have to face your own fears about the changing economy. You needed me to validate your choices by failing alongside you. But that's not love, Dad. That's control. Cumblit. Director Phillips stands, his decision visible in his posture. This behavior is completely unacceptable in any family. I'm afraid I'll have to ask you all to leave the premises immediately. You can't just, my father begins, but Phillips continues. Any further disruption to my staff will involve security. Casey is one of our most valuable employees, and I won't tolerate this kind of interference with her professional life. My father's face transforms, the mask of reasonable concern crumbles, revealing the tightly controlled fury beneath. His fingers curl into fists, then release. For a terrifying moment, I think he might overturn the table, but instead, he takes a shuddering breath, desperately trying to maintain his composure. Jack finally turns from the window. His expression stuns me, shock, as if he never expected consequences to actually materialize. As if the pattern we've lived with for decades was supposed to continue without challenge. Casey, my mother whispers, we need you. The mill is really closing. I look at her, really look at her, and see the woman who watched silently all those years, never intervening. I know, Mom. But needing me doesn't give you the right to destroy what I've built. Phillips moves toward the door, a clear signal this meeting is ending. My father stands, shoulders rigid with barely contained rage. Jack follows, looking less certain than when they arrived. I'll always be your daughter, I tell them as they prepare to leave, but I won't be your victim. When you're ready to respect me and my choices, we can talk again, but not until then, and never here at my workplace. As they file out, Annie's hand finds mine again. Her eyes shine with unshed tears. You stood up for yourself like I never could, she whispers. Director Phillips watches the door close behind my family before turning to me. Those who tear others down reveal more about themselves than their targets, he says. Your presentation after that laptop incident showed me exactly who you are, Casey. This just confirms it. The room feels different once they're gone, lighter somehow, as if gravity itself has recalibrated. I expected to feel hollowed out, maybe even grief-stricken, but instead, there's a calm certainty. For the first time since leaving home, I've set the terms for my life instead of reacting to theirs. Are you okay? Annie asks. I consider the question carefully. The bridge to my childhood is burning behind me, but ahead lies something I've never fully experienced before. Freedom without guilt. I think I will be. I answer, gathering my documents. For the first time, I think I really will be. I clutch my coffee mug tighter as the hotel director slides a certificate across her polished desk. Employee of the Quarter shines in embossed gold lettering beneath my name. The board was particularly impressed with how you handled everything last week, she says, leaning back in her chair. Not many people could deliver a flawless presentation after a family crisis, let alone manage the confrontation with such professionalism. My fingers trace the edge of the frame. 3 weeks since the conference room showdown, and I still wake up some mornings half expecting to find myself back in my parents' house, diminished and desperate for their approval. Thank you, I say, the words still feeling new in my mouth. Before, I'd have deflected, minimized my achievement. Now I let the recognition settle, a small weight balancing the heavier ones I've carried. The staff's talking about it, you know, not the drama, your composure. The way you stood your ground. Her eyes crinkle at the corners. That kind of leadership can't be taught. Outside her window, tourists stroll along the hotel's manicured path. I spot a father lifting his daughter onto his shoulders, her small hands gripping his forehead for balance. Something twists inside me, but the pain feels distant now, like an old injury that only aches before rain. Have you heard from them? she asks. I shake my head. They left town the day after. Jack texted once to say the mill officially closed last week. I set my mug down. I think it's better this way. What I don't tell her is how much lighter I feel. How I've slept through the night for the first time in years. How decisions come easier without the weight of anticipated disapproval. That evening, Annie waits for me on her front porch, 2 glasses of lemonade sweating on the small table between rocking chairs. Our Tuesday tradition, now officially marked in both our calendars. I made the appointment. I tell her, settling into the familiar creak of the rocker. The therapist you recommended had an opening next week. Annie nods, satisfaction warming her face. Good. Understanding those patterns will help, Casey. Some wounds need more than time. I sip my lemonade, tart and sweet on my tongue. I updated my emergency contacts at work today. Put your name at the top. Her hand finds mine, squeezes once. About time. We sit in comfortable silence as the sun dips lower, painting her azaleas in golden light. A car backfires down the street, and I notice I don't flinch anymore. You know, Annie says after a while, family isn't always blood. Sometimes it's who believes in you. I finish, and we clink our glasses together. 8 months later, I stand in the hotel's largest conference room, watching my team arrange chairs for tomorrow's regional meeting. The morning light streams through floor-to-ceiling windows, illuminating faces that look to me for guidance without fear. Maria, can you check that the catering order includes the vegetarian options? My voice carries with easy authority. No more second-guessing. No more seeking permission to lead. Already confirmed, Miss Miller. She smiles, clipboard tucked against her chest. And the welcome packets are ready for your review. Where there was once a constant hum of anxiety, I now find a steady rhythm of confidence. My morning ritual has transformed gratitude journal, replacing desperate emails, checking if my achievements were acceptable. 3 pages every morning, listing small victories and unexpected joys. The Anderson group arrives at noon. I tell my team, let's make sure everything's perfect. Perfect. A word I once feared. The standard I could never reach. Now it's simply a direction, not a destination. After work, I drive to the community center where I volunteer weekends teaching financial literacy. The sessions started as a way to fill lonely evenings but evolved into something more meaningful, a chance to help others avoid the dependencies that trapped my parents. My phone buzzes as I pull into my driveway. To my house, 3 blocks from Annie's. No more monthly payments supporting parents who undermined me. The mortgage statement feels like freedom each time it arrives. The text comes from a number I haven't seen in months. Jack, can we meet? I need to talk to you. I consider ignoring it, then remember my therapist's words about chosen engagement versus avoidance. I type back, coffee shop on Elm, tomorrow at 4. Jack arrives 10 minutes early, hands fidgeting with his paper cup. 8 months have thinned his face, added lines around his eyes. When he spots me, he straightens, uncertainty replacing the smugness I remember. Thanks for coming, he says as I slide into the seat across from him. What's going on, Jack? I keep my voice neutral, neither hostile nor welcoming. He stares into his coffee. Dad's sick, his lungs, all those years at the mill. His voice trails off, and I wait, letting him fill the silence. The old me would have jumped to fix things, offer money, solutions, anything to earn approval. I'm sorry to hear that, I say finally, meaning it while maintaining my boundaries. Jack looks up, surprise flashing across his face. That's it? No lecture about karma? Would that help anyone? I ask. Something shifts in his expression. I started working at Uncle Mike's garage, he offers, taking night classes too, mechanical engineering. My eyebrows rise. That's great, Jack, really. I wanted to study archaeology when we were kids, he admits, voice lower. Never told anyone. Dad would have exploded. He rotates his cup slowly. When you chased your goals, I was jealous but also admired you. Should have said that instead of... He gestures vaguely, encompassing all the cruel words, the laughter as my laptop shattered. We talk for an hour. Not about reconciliation with our parents, those bridges remain ashes, but about his tentative steps toward his own identity. About possibilities. About choices. Family can be the ones who wound you deepest, I tell him as we stand to leave, but they can also change. And if they don't? He asks. Then you build something new. I gesture to the window, where Annie waits in her car, pretending not to watch us. My chosen family, my safety net. Jack nods slowly. Maybe we could talk again. Sometime. On my terms, I clarify. Not theirs. Understood. I watch him walk away, shoulders straighter than I remember. The real power, I realize, lies in choosing to live true to yourself. If your family destroyed your career tools and tried to hold you back, would you forgive them later or cut ties for good? I'm still deciding, but at least now it's my choice to make.